Take two people, same city, same age, same starting point in life. Give them the exact same problem: a failed business, a lost job, a dream that didn't work out the way they planned. Watch what happens next. One person sits with the failure, turns it over in their mind again and again, and slowly begins to believe that this is simply who they are, someone things don't work out for. The other person sits with the exact same failure, feels the exact same pain, and then does something quietly different. They ask one question: not "why did this happen to me?" but "what can I learn from this?" That single difference, that one small shift in the direction of a thought, is where success actually begins. Most people believe that successful people are different because of what they have: better resources, better connections, better luck. And sometimes that is true. But the deeper truth, the one that psychology keeps returning to again and again, is that successful people are different because of how they see, not what they look at. How they see it. The same event, processed through a different mind, produces a completely different outcome. That is not inspiration. That is neuroscience. The first thing that separates how successful people think is their relationship with failure. For most people, failure is a verdict. It is the moment the world confirms what they secretly feared: that they are not enough, not capable, not worthy of the thing they were reaching for. But for people who consistently succeed, failure is information. It is the most honest feedback they will ever receive. It tells them exactly what didn't work, which is precisely the knowledge they need to find what will. Thomas Edison didn't think of his 10,000 failed attempts as 10,000 losses. He thought of them as 10,000 discoveries about what light bulbs could not be made of. That reframe, failure as data rather than defeat, is one of the most powerful cognitive shifts a human being can make. The second difference is where they place their attention. Unsuccessful thinking tends to be problem-focused. The mind locks onto what is wrong, what is missing, what hasn't worked, what might go wrong next. This is not stupidity. It is actually the brain doing exactly what it evolved to do, scanning constantly for threats. But successful thinking is solution-focused. It doesn't ignore the problem. It acknowledges it clearly, then immediately turns the question around. Okay, this is where we are. Now what can we do? That pivot from "why is this happening" to "what do I do next" sounds simple, but it requires genuine mental discipline because the brain's default setting pulls hard toward the problem and away from the solution. The third difference is how they talk to themselves when no one is listening. Everyone has an inner voice, the running commentary that narrates our lives from the inside. For most people, that voice is a critic. It catalogues mistakes, predicts failure, compares unfavorably to others, and specializes in the precise words most likely to make you feel small. Successful people have this voice too, but at some point, through practice, through pain, through intentional work, they learn to talk back to it. Not to silence it entirely, because that is not possible, but to question it, to say, is this thought actually true? Or is it just fear wearing the costume of certainty? That small act of questioning, repeated over time, slowly changes the entire internal landscape. The fourth difference, and perhaps the most underestimated one, is their tolerance for discomfort. Success of any kind requires doing things that feel uncertain, uncomfortable, and unfinished for long stretches of time. Most people retreat from that discomfort the moment it arrives. They go back to what is familiar, what is safe, what is already known. Successful people have trained themselves to sit in the discomfort a little longer, not because they enjoy it, but because they understand that discomfort is not a signal to stop. It is a signal that growth is happening. The moment just before a breakthrough almost always feels like the moment before a breakdown. Knowing the difference is everything. None of this means successful people are fearless. None of this means they don't doubt themselves, don't get tired, don't want to give up. They do all of those things. What makes them different is not the absence of those feelings, but what they choose to do while those feelings are present. They move anyway, They try again anyway. They ask one more question, take one more step, stay in the room one more day, and slowly, almost without noticing, that consistency becomes a life that looks from the outside like extraordinary success. The truth is, the gap between where you are and where you want to be is not talent. It is not luck. It is not the circumstances you were born into. More often than you might think, it is simply the way you are currently thinking about those things. And thinking, unlike talent, unlike luck, unlike circumstance, is something you can change. Starting today, starting now, starting with one question, asked differently, just once.